outside a police station in northern Tunisia. Reports suggest the clashes at El Khef were sparked after a policeman allegedly attacked a woman who'd come to file a complaint. Following the incident, the police station and some police cars were set on fire. Tens of thousands of Serbs have gathered in central Belgrade in the biggest anti-government rally seen there for years. The protest was headed by the Serbian Progressive Party, a centre-right organisation formed from the Serbian Radical Party. Now, protesters are calling for early elections, higher wages and a crackdown on corruption. Opposition groups are also frustrated with what they see as a slow integration into the European Union. At least 5 people have been killed in Sri Lanka after days of torrential rains which have led to widespread flooding. The country's disaster management centre is struggling to cope with the scale of the damage. Hundreds of thousands of people have been affected. Minel Fernandez has more.
The waters raged once again, sweeping everything in their path. Worst hit was the north-central province. Swollen irrigation tanks breaching their banks. One reported to have unleashed around 55,000 cubic acres of water. Many villagers were cut off by the floodwater, boats their only hope. Over 1 million people have been affected and more than 230,000 have been forced to leave their homes for temporary shelters. In the Central Highlands, authorities issued a landslide alert and declared a state of emergency in some areas.
Our kitchen was buried by a landslide at the back of the house.
It wasn't just people facing hardships. This baby elephant was among the wildlife caught by rising waters. The military and police are helping with the rescue and relief efforts. But despite the devastation, there were some moments of hope. This baby born on a helicopter as her mother was flown to safety. In Colombo, charities are trying to gather food and clothing to send to victims. But they face a major problem delivering this aid, as many roads are impassable. Emergency supplies and food stocks are being loaded up behind me to be taken to the hundreds of thousands of people affected by this latest round of flooding. But it'll take a whole lot more for those affected by this latest disaster to get on their feet again. Minel Fernandez, Al Jazeera, Colombo.
3 Pakistani cricketers have been found guilty of corruption following a hearing in Doha. Salman Butt, Mohammad Asif and Mohammad Amir were charged with conspiring to bowl no balls at pre-arranged times during a test match against England last year. All 3 were banned for a minimum of 5 years. Rahul Pathak has more from Doha.
Well, there were chaotic, almost jubilant scenes outside the Qatar Financial Centre as the 3 players involved attempted to leave earlier today following Saturday's decision. All 3 players essentially have been banned for 5 years each, but there's a real feeling here that the punishment handed down by Michael Beloff QC and his 2 colleagues could have been a lot more harsh.
The tribunal has recommended to the ICC certain changes to the code with a view to providing flexibility in relation to minimum sentences in exceptional circumstances.
Well, as for the players themselves, all 3 are said to be very disappointed with the decision, and Mohammad Amir, for one, has confirmed that he will instruct his lawyers to go ahead with an appeal. That will be heard by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Well, the next big date for the players is March the 17th. That's when they'll appear before Westminster magistrates in London. They'll be accused of accepting and obtaining corrupt payments. Now, that carries a maximum jail term of 7 years, an extremely serious charge there. But as for the International Cricket Council, well, does this punishment that was handed out today really send out the strong message that they were looking for at the beginning of this tribunal? Well, I think the jury's still very much out on that. Rahul Pathak, Al Jazeera, Doha.
Well, back to events in Egypt now, and when the uprising there began nearly 2 weeks ago, there was a near total internet blackout. But exactly how was access cut off? Well, an American advocacy group called Free Press says it's uncovered a link to a California-based technology company which allegedly sold the Egyptian government equipment, allowing it to track online activity. Rob Reynolds has the story.
When Egyptian authorities shut down internet access in an effort to stifle growing anti-government protests, their actions were condemned worldwide, including by U.S. President Barack Obama. But a U.S. company is working with Egypt's state telecommunications agency, selling its sophisticated tools for spying and controlling web users. Naris, located in Sunnyvale, California, provided Telecom Egypt with a monitoring tool called Deep Packet Inspection. Tim Carr heads the media reform organization, Free Press.
Deep Packet Inspection sits on routers around internet networks, and it allows them to sift through, to filter, to surveil internet communications.
DPI permits governments to know which of its citizens is posting criticisms or organizing protests through Twitter and Facebook. It can also track cell phone users.
With some cell phone systems, you can actually geolocate the person that is tweeting via their cell phone, for example, and track them down. So it has various dangerous applications.
Naris, which is owned by the aircraft maker and weapons contractor Boeing, refused to return Al Jazeera's calls and emails. So we went to see them in person.
Rob Reynolds, I'm a reporter with Al Jazeera English. I'm here to see if I could speak to executives about your sales of technology to Egypt.
Only thing to say is no comment. Nobody is talking to the media.
The secretive company has also sold technology to Saudi Telecom, Kuwaiti Wataniya Telecom, and India's largest broadband provider, Sci-Fi. Internet spying is generally illegal in the U.S. Naris is one of several companies that sell internet tracking and spying technology. But there are no laws or regulations to govern the use and sale of these powerful tools. Carr says more transparency and oversight are needed.
We've been calling for a more thorough investigation of the uses and abuses of this technology. We hope here in the United States that Congress will investigate.
For now, though, protesters and critics of governments around the world should know Big Brother is watching. Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera, Sunnyvale, California.
Well, before we go, just a recap on the main developments in Egypt's ongoing crisis as the pro-democracy protests continue in Liberation Square. Now, the man who was President Obama's special envoy to Egypt has said Mubarak's continued leadership is crucial for a transition to democracy. But the White House later distanced itself from Frank Wisner's comments. The top brass of the ruling NDP party has resigned, including President Mubarak's son, Gamal. Of course, we'll continue to follow events there in Egypt, and of course our Al Jazeera correspondents are on the ground. Our next programme after this is Egypt Birding. Stay with us for more news at the top of the hour.
South Lebanon, a region that is one of the most volatile front lines of the Arab-Israeli conflict. A place where international borders are poorly defined and disputed. An area called the Sheba Farms highlights the disagreement over borders and the danger of violence. The Sheba Farms is a sliver of land between Lebanon and Syria. The area was captured by Israel in 1967, along with the Golan Heights from Syria. To this day, the Israelis remain there. Lebanon says it owns the Sheba Farms. Syria agrees. But the United Nations has ruled that the area belongs to Syria. And Israel says it will only withdraw from the area via negotiations with Syria. Beside the Sheba Farms is the small town of Kfar Shuba in South Lebanon. We arranged a tour of the area with a local Lebanese MP as well as the town's mayor. Israeli military positions on the Sheba Farms hilltops overlook the town of Kfar Shuba. The Sheba Farms became a hot political issue in the months preceding Israel's withdrawal from South Lebanon in May 2000.